Start streaming. Alright everybody, it is Sunday, November 11th, 2018, currently 5:03 p.m. We're a little bit late, but that's okay. And you're listening to Education with Ed. We're going to be going over the 12th Amendment today. So, Ed, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, thank you for joining us tonight. We want to bring some new information tonight, too. There's a lot of things that are changing. And if people are not paying attention to what's going on in administrative rules, especially with this last so-called election, because the election in the state of Oregon, only 27% of the voters turned out, and that's basically contractors, elected and public servants, and registered church members. They got to keep their jobs going, you know, the foster cares, church organizations that get off on this, on a tax write-off that they want to bill you for, but the national bankers write it off on their debt. And see, that's where people got to realize how this stuff really works compared to what they think it is, because the bank is into us, we the people. The country never went bankrupt. The corporation did, and who owned the corporation? You know what is that? 3002. Who owns the corporation? You know, that's what the bottom line comes down to. And that's where the point is, those corporation members are liable. And that's where I've talked to some natives and a few other people here last week, and they're slowly getting it. And it's like you have to file the criminal charges on the liable party. If you don't file the criminal charges on the liable party, you can't sue a dead corporation. Because once you file on the corporation members, then you could file on the corporation, but you have to file on the servants first. And we are realizing this by the education and reading the stuff that we're putting together to get out to you folks, because, you know, I mean, I'm learning this the hard way too, putting this stuff together, bringing this stuff out to the general public. So I'm putting this stuff together, and we're seeing what's going on in national stuff with the Democrats are panicking, literally, and, you know, and they're really going after Trump. And let me tell you, I don't give a damn either or, because I don't vote. Lawful people don't vote. Only slaves vote. That's how they keep you in slavery under the 14th Amendment that was never ratified. And we will get into the 13th Amendment. That was the last one ever ratified. And after the 13th, they can never ratify anything after they formed a corporation. And they know it. Now you know it. And so when they start playing these games, you have to stand up to these things. And that's the one thing that is beautiful, that we got people that are educating their children on this right now. So that way when they get in the point where they get old enough and they realize when these things happen and they start getting in the point of being heirs to land or whatever, they know how to fight for their land. They know how to stay on it. They have to learn how to fight with their family to keep the bloodline on that soil. And everybody knows I passed out the structure dealing with the court cases on mortgage fraud. And, you know, that's the one thing, that there are people that are using that court case now going to court. And they're using the other court case called the IRS, because the IRS is a voluntary system. I posted that around, put their structure up, and, you know, people are waking up to that too. So, you know, things are happening. And so it is taking a long time, and at some point a snail pace, I give you that. And so we'll see what else turns up. I mean, this last election, to me, was a big joke. I still don't know how Ryan Bundy even turned out in an election. You know, and like I suggested to the Bundys, you know, preach your bloodline, preach what the state said, preach what the gentleman, stated Wayne Stump said about the state of Nevada. You don't need a driver's license. Okay, you're using their word from Congress. You don't sit there and go with religion or anything else. You use their words that made sure that we had the rights of travel, the rights to subsistence, hunt, and fish. I mean, this is ridiculous where a child is being charged to go fishing or a child's being charged to go hunting. And if he don't pay the fee, the privilege to eat, he's supposed to go to jail. I mean, you know, it makes you wonder how many of these people have lost their minds and they call themselves Christians or religious men and women. They have lost their mind. You're making a child pay the privilege to eat? You know, so it's sad. Anyhow, let's get into the video on this one. I'll get into other stuff. We'll open up the floor after that. But it is interesting when we step out of the movie and watch the production of what we are living and what is being portrayed. And it is really an eye-opening experience for a lot of us. Anyhow, let's get to the video.
Alright, I'll get the video going pretty quickly here. I just need to situate it up. But, yeah, the thing is, we haven't had a real amendment since the 13th, so... Yeah, well, we're almost there. We're almost to the last Constitution amendment that was lawful.
Hey guys, welcome to Hip Hughes History. We're going to bang up some 12th Amendment for you guys and fix some of the boo-boos that the Founding Fathers made in the original Constitution. What are you talking about, Mr. Hughes? They were perfect. Maybe not perfect. All right, here we go, guys. We're not going to read this constitutional amendment like we do some of the others. It's pretty wordy. We're just going to kind of right down the lane explain it to you. This is meant to fix the problems of the Electoral College. Yeah, guys, there's problems with Article 2, Section 1, Clause 3, the Electoral College, the process for electing the president. And these problems arise both in 1796 and in 1800. So why don't we take a look at those two elections, and then we'll kind of briefly explain what the 12th Amendment is going to do to fix those problems, and then we're going to go have a fantastic day of learning and growing as young people and lifelong learners on the internet. All right, so let's start with 1796. The way that the constitutional process works before the 12th Amendment is basically that each elector votes for two people. The two people he thinks bestest would be the bestest president. Today, we know that they vote for president and vice president. But basically, the way the system works back then is after they would count all the electoral votes, the guy that had first place would be the president, and the guy in second place would be vice president. So basically, there's some kind of electoral scheming going on between the electors to make sure that the guy in second place is of the same party to be the vice president for the president. So in 1796, you have John Adams, the Federalist, who is now running to replace the retiring George Washington. And he chooses Tom Pinckney to be his vice president, another Federalist. They like blood brothers. And then you have Thomas Jefferson and his vice president, I think it's Aaron Burr. They're the Democratic Republicans. So what was supposed to occur was only like one guy, I think, one elector, is supposed to throw his vote away. So every other Federalist votes, you know, John Adams, Thomas Pinckney. And then one of them is supposed to vote their vote away, like give it to Jefferson or something. So the guy in second place would be a Federalist, Thomas Pinckney. And the problem is they don't communicate very well, and a number of them do that. So what occurs? You get Thomas Jefferson in second place. So for 4 years, and it's the only time in American history that this has really happened, you have two opposing parties that don't want to work together that are the president and the vice president of the United States. And I think that this is freaking people out. Maybe not back then because Thomas Jefferson's a cool cat, but in the future, if you have this recurring situation where the vice president has a benefit if the president drops dead, namely he'll become president, you have like a House of Cards situation. You have like a Kevin Spacey scheming thing going on there. So that's the first problem. The president and the vice president aren't running on the same ticket. So let's look at 1800. All right, 1800 is the problem of the tie, because if everybody does their duty, if everybody votes the way that they're supposed to vote, then you'd end up with a tie, because whoever the president would be, the vice president, their second choice, would have the same number of votes. So somebody's got to throw their vote away. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So in 1800, you have Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr running against John Adams. And this time, it's, heavily favored to be the Democratic Republicans. Somebody's got to throw their vote away. Somebody's not going to vote for Aaron Burr, right? Wrong. They all vote Jefferson Burr. So you end up in a tie, and it gets thrown into the House of Reps. The problem that gets further compounded because it's not the new Congress that elects the president, and then it would be no problem because the Democratic Republicans had a banner year in 1800. It's the old Federalist Congress, and those sons of you-know-whats, they don't want to give Jefferson the presidency. So they go through, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 35, 36 rounds trying to choose the president. At the end of the day, it's Alexander Hamilton, who's the hero of the situation, who convinces his Federalists that it's best that they make sure that Jefferson gets the presidency. Let bygones be bygones. He knows that Aaron Burr is a more dangerous choice than Thomas Jefferson. But now we have to fix these problems, all right? We're going to fix them because I got something called the 12th Amendment. So the 12th Amendment, at the end of the day, it's really long, guys. At the end of the day, it's going to have two distinct ballots for the presidency and the vice presidency. So when the electors are casting their votes, they don't have to worry about ties or who comes in second, all this nonsense. It'll be the ticket that wins, and we don't have to worry about all this nonsense. You do still have this favorite son clause, though. And what this clause is, it's also in the original Constitution, that if you're an elector from Texas, you're not allowed to choose a president and vice president that are both from Texas. This was supposed to stop like the favorite son syndrome, that every state would just elect people from their state. The only time this has ever been of any concern was in 2000. There were, I believe, some suits that came up in the court system after Bush and Cheney won, because technically Cheney was living in Texas for 5 or 6 years before the election. So technically, according to the 12th Amendment, the people in Texas, the electors from Texas, should not have been able to vote for Bush and Cheney. But the courts ruled that he changed his license the last couple weeks before the election. But that's in that amendment. So having the president and the vice president also is going to stop that problem of ties or anything occurring like that happened in 1800. And now, basically what occurs is like the Electoral College. After we have the election, it goes to a joint session of Congress where the vice president, acting as president of the Senate, is the official counter of the Electoral College. And then if nobody gets the majority of votes, this is still the same, it gets thrown into the House of Reps for the presidency. Rather than having 5 from the list, which is in the original Constitution, the 12th Amendment says that there will be 3 from the list. This becomes important in 1824. In 1824, I don't want to go on a tangent on YouTube, but it's a pretty cool story. In 1824, you have 4 big Democratic Republicans running. You have Andrew Jackson, you have John Quincy Adams, you have William Crawford, and you have Henry Clay. And these 4 guys, nobody gets the Electoral College win. So the top 3, which are going to be Jackson, Adams, and Crawford, they go to the House of Reps. Crawford's really sick, so he doesn't count anymore. So the Congress, the House of Reps, has to choose between John Quincy Adams, who kind of lost the election, the popular vote, and this new kid on the block, Andrew Jackson. Well, it happens to be that Henry Clay, who's the 4th guy, who's not in the Situation Room anymore, he supposedly strikes what's called the corrupt bargain with John Quincy Adams. Henry Clay was the Speaker of the House. He had enormous influence in the House of Reps, and he gathers his forces, and in 1824, they all line up behind John Quincy Adams, and John Quincy Adams steals the election from Andrew Jackson. And then when John Quincy Adams has to choose a Secretary of State, I wonder who's he going to choose? Henry Clay, what are you doing? Corrupt bargain, like House of Cards, like Kevin Spacey. But at the end of the day, that's basically it, guys. That's the 12th Amendment for you. No more president and vice presidents of opposing parties. We're going to have one ticket, and we're going to elect those bad boys together. Giddy up for the learning, guys. If you haven't checked out Hip Hugh's history, why don't you click on that teacher's face? I think that's one of the teachers out there that shows my videos sometimes. So click his face, and you'll zip off to Hip Hugh's history, where you'll find like 300 videos, and you subscribe for free. Fun, focused video lectures. All right, where attention goes, energy flows. We'll see you next time when we do teaching. You know where? On YouTube.
Anyhow, that's one thing I enjoy playing this guy's videos because he is a teacher, he is a Democrat, he doesn't believe in a Republican form of government, as you can tell. And the point is that this guy gets so many hits on his website, and he's got, you know, other structures out there with other people. So the reason why that we need to do this is comprehend what these people are out there who are public servants putting out to the general public. We have to do this. It's our security, and that is the point, that if we don't do this, there is no security for anybody else. You know, so that is the one thing that if we don't start standing up, you know, like we are, and doing more of it, we won't be doing this. So this is the one thing that people have to come to common sense to this stuff. We have elected and public employees, and we know their servitude. We've had the administrative rules, and you have to put that in every time you write an affidavit. And you have to put in, 3771 of the Corpus Delicti. And so that is the one thing that if we're not putting this stuff in, we're not getting into the right courts. They don't like to have this stuff in. But when you do that, the one thing is you have to prove that you are in the right court. You have to file on their bond or insurance when you get into the right court. You have to file on this. Or if you end up in an administrative rule court, you have to file on that so you know what court you're in. You can't leave it up to the court, because you do it, leave it up to the court, and you walk in that court blindly, you know, you're giving up your rights. You have no rights, period, when you walk in that court blindly. So you have to start standing up. And this is the one thing that we are seeing things that are changing with some of the natives. And people are getting that, and that is the one thing that people are comprehending. You know, I mean, that is the one thing that people are really comprehending. And so as we're doing this and we're walking through these pages together, you know, this is the one thing about proper education. And so that's the one thing that we need to do, that is make sure that people have got proper education and knowing the circumstances of what is going on. And so this is a perfect education point for the kids. Now, somebody was going off earlier on we were having a conversation a little bit before when we came in, and I want to know if he's willing to bring that up when he was talking about Mulberry versus Madison. So why don't we open up the floor? Or did we already have the floor open?
All participants are unmuted.
So you there, you know who I'm talking about. So why don't you go ahead with Mulberry versus Madison? You were doing a really good job of bringing it forward.
What did we do?
Tell him. What we were talking about, Ed, was that I was going over it again with them. Always, you know, trying to keep it in their forefront so that they don't forget about who John Madison's Secretary of State was, which was who?
John Marshall.
John Marshall. And then what was he promised?
That he's gonna
Speak up.
That he's going to become Chief Justice
Of the Supreme Court. And then Mulberry was supposed to be Supreme Court Justice, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then I turned around and I said, what were the three questions after he didn't get it? What were the three questions they asked?
Was it okay?
What do you mean, was it okay?
Like going with him?
Did he follow the laws to be able to take it to the Supreme Court?
Yes.
Okay. And then what was the second question?
Did he come to the right place?
Well, no, did he follow the laws? And then the third one, and final one that made it, the final decision was,
Can the judicial tell the executive to
To be able to tell can the judicial tell the executive branch what to do or who to hire?
Only if they violate the Constitution.
But they weren't doing that, so the answer came up as no. So that's how they came to the determination that Marbury wasn't going to get the Supreme Court justice because they weren't breaking any laws and nobody was breaking any constitutional laws. So that's how they came up with the final decision of it.
Right. And so, young man, what else you got to add?
Hip Hughes messed up on the president.
Just say that again and speak a little louder.
Hip Hughes messed up on the president.
Hmm. So what else you think?
Nothing else.
Okay. Fair to say. So this is the one point of going through this stuff. So that way we get to know the truth compared to what people are going out. Because there's a lot of groups out there misspeaking, bringing up things. They're interpreting the Constitution, and you know, it's like you don't interpret something the way it says. Like the Second Amendment says, "Shall not." You can't interpret "shall not." So that's the thing that is disturbing. And how come we're not teaching public safety? I mean, when I was going to school back in the 70s, we had a hunter safety course, and this is in Marin County, outside of San Francisco. You know, modern day, you know, in the mid-70s. You know, we had shooting ranges back then and part of the schools and stuff. And so then all of a sudden, you know, when Feinstein and Boxer started doing all this stuff with gun rights, then all of a sudden the colleges and universities lost and the high schools lost all their funding for the ammunitions and the programs to educate people on, oh, what is that? Public right of safety of the firearm. But you can't have people really educated in knowing this stuff. So that's why it turned out that it comes to our hands that we have to do it, because we can't trust the system. Because right now in the state of Oregon, if you do turn in an arm or something like that and you have a conflict, they brand you as a domestic terrorist. And people don't get this fact. And with the so-called last terroristic terrorism election, the way I'm going to call it, we're living that still. I still cannot believe that 27% of the people who voted even voted for food tax and all this other stuff. And, you know, a toll booth on I-5, you have no idea what that's going to do to our commutes from Seattle and, you know, Vancouver and stuff. People don't even have a concept what's going on. And then they think, oh, we could go on 205, and that's going to be okay, because that's not 5, where it ain't toll booth. You better read what it says. So I always tell people, read this stuff. Don't listen to these people. It's like the propaganda that they want to put in the $790 million tram in Portland. You know, read the contracts. I mean, it's only going to cost realistically $400, and the rest of it they're pocketing. Just like they did up here in Oregon on Highway 20. And I proved that the original structure of the bridge or the highway was supposed to be $129 million, and it went over to $359 million. So, I mean, they do this deliberately, folks, because that creates jobs. That creates the havoc we are living. And everybody goes, well, I want a job. Well, do you want a job or do you want freedom? See, that's what we have to really look at, the realistic point of view. So if you want freedom, that means you have to be, self-employed, out of the system, you know, making sure that you're not a corporate member, and that is your, what is that decision? Not a choice, because decisions are responsible people. So anyhow, I'm just asking anybody else got anything else they would like to add tonight?
Hey, Ed.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ed, this is Stefan. I called you about my fiance.
Yes.
And we got this. Hey, how's it going?
It's going good, and I'm waiting for her to get back to me on a question I asked her.
Oh gosh, yeah, I don't know where that would go. Might have to talk to me about it. I got no say there.
Got it. She's the one who had the incident, which you did to her, so she has to live with what you did to her. So she's the one with the incident, so I have to wait for her to make the comment. I do not talk to you on an incident with you confess to me what you did.
I mean, don't I got any civil rights?
Did she have any civil rights with your attitude?
I mean,
think about it. So think. Anyhow, anybody else got something else to add tonight?
Mr. Ed.
Yeah, go ahead. The first one first, and then the second one.
All right.
Go ahead, Southern.
You were talking a minute ago about years ago they used to train the children in school, to use firearms.
Yeah, that's what happened when I went to school. Yes, literally.
Okay. The money and appropriations for that is hidden inside the National Defense Authorization Act under Title 32, the Code of Federal Regulations. The money's still coming out to the states. Okay? Remember the collected undistributed child support funds I showed you?
Right.
Same thing. Same thing. It's sitting in the state capitol. All right? They don't want what's going down in these states is the militia of these states from time immemorial. All right, the people were the first line of defense in an invasion. There's a book out there. I'm not going to give the name of it because they really don't want you reading it. But basically, back in what?
I can comprehend how some of those ones are.
But basically, well, that's for like this. It was only on the market for like 4 or 5 months, and a whole bunch of hell went down. But the bottom line is, if we get invaded today, right this minute, have you ever seen the movie Red Dawn?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, you cannot expect any help for a minimum of 30 days. Okay? That's going to give them time to organize some sort of defense or reprisal to remove the people off our land. What has kept the people from invading the United States, England used to get invaded every couple of years.
Yes.
So they started arming and training the people. I forget what year it was, like 1200, 1300. They stopped getting invaded. Well, we brought that same principle here, that the militia was a people. We are the first line of defense.
Right.
Should an invasion happen. That, like I said, that money is hidden inside the National Defense Authorization Act. Along with your school money and a bunch of other funding. This is why they sign the National Defense Authorization Act every 2 years, to keep the state militias, an army out there.
Right.
Well, but most of these schools have ROTC, and they're getting funding for that ROTC through the National Defense Authorization Act, which, as long as they got some sort of military training at these schools, aka physical education or any of this stuff that qualifies under that, they get funding for this stuff.
Right.
To the schools. But by the same token, the people out here are also supposed to be being trained, and they're not doing it correctly anymore. Basically, they got afraid of the militia.
Right.
All right, but they still have us in the militia. All right, so they have control over us. All right, in all these states. I've showed you that in your own state.
Or a resident, yeah.
Well, no. Well, yeah, you got to be a resident, but also you got to look up your militia laws.
No, I know that. That's why I'm not a resident.
Well, it doesn't matter if you live in a state boundary. All right, that's what you're considered. Period.
Oh no, mine's certified by the Secretary of State.
Okay.
I've even got that certification from the lady that was put at the Secretary of State, Kate Brown, is certified in her office. So, yeah, no, I'm not a resident, and so, but you got a point. Go ahead and go on with that, please.
Well, if you want to get some interesting reading, like I said, it started back with the Dick Act I think it was 1903, where they separated uniformed active militia and the ununiformed unorganized militia. We're still classified the unorganized militia.
Right.
Okay?
Clarify that 1903 date happened after the 1902 Supreme Court of the 1902 Gun Act. So let's make sure people comprehend that started going on and through the House and Senate in 1903. Go ahead.
Well, the bottom line is we're supposed to still be armed with modern weapons of the day.
Yep.
All right? And basically, I made this statement once or twice before, and I'll make it again. Technically, anybody disarming a militia member, all right, in the face of any enemy, all right, thereby giving aid and comfort to that enemy, okay, is committing an act of treason.
And that's what the courts and the cops are doing right now today to us.
Yep. Because we are technically at a war, all right, with terrorists that has never been stopped since 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And since we are at a war, you cannot disarm the militia.
That's right. And they declared war when those Twin Towers went down. And I still find it amazing that they're claiming a plane hit it and it fell down. There's no way a controlled demolition falls from a plane when they built that building, and it was supposed to survive any plane that hit it. So you know where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I understand the word thermite. Very, very nasty stuff. It'll cut an engine pocket too in a heartbeat.
I thought you said termite.
So thermite.
Oh, I know what you said, but I had to have fun with that pun. But you know, it is interesting. And how does out of all the other buildings, the FBI building, Building 7 falls for vibration? They're trying to claim. Are people that stupid? I guess they are. Because look at the last election. You know, why would Oregon vote to put a food tax and to vote to put a new vehicle tax to have their car insurance and auto insurance go up additional $80 every 2 years? You know, it just amazes me that Oregon passed all these so-called taxes that they're claiming, including a, toll booth and stuff. It's ridiculous. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm hearing from all over the country the same thing in this last election. Stuff was passed, and I talked to a guy the other day who told me that he heard this, was sitting watching the news, and they passed this amendment or something in his state. He said he reached over and picked up a copy of the absentee ballot.
Mm-hmm.
He called a couple of his friends up. They never heard of that damn thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he said that things were allegedly passed, and it was not on the ballot.
Yep. Yep, that's a fact.
Yep.
So, I mean, it is interesting what's going on today.
Oh, yes, it's getting real interesting. They're just throwing it right in our face that we don't matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a fact. That's a real fact. So, but yeah, no, we're living a hell of a time when it comes down to what we're going through. So do me a favor, message me or email me that information. I got something else I'm going to email you too.
Well, I won't be able to get on the internet until Tuesday.
Right.
But I need to.
When you get a chance, I'll be looking forward to it because I want to get some of that put up, and I want to put that in another instrument I want to put together.
What information are you looking for?
One you just talked about.
Yeah, NDAA?
Yeah.
Which one? They've been passing them things since 1902. Well, 1903. No, excuse me.
Well, you do know about Big Elk case of 1900, don't you?
The what?
Big Elk case?
Where
he was a native Indian, and the Rangers went after him for feeding himself, shot an animal out of season, so he had to shoot out. So he shot 3 of the cops, and the Supreme Court said he had a right to feed himself.
Yep. Oh, Bad Elk, yeah.
Bad Elk, yeah. And look, don't know that case, please look that case up and realize that the natives, we have lawful rights versus legal citizen privileges. And so that's why I preach. Learn your bloodline. Prove your bloodline. It does matter. I don't care what all these other people out there trying to tell you, but you prove your bloodline and you go back in history to the instruments that have been passed that were there to protect your bloodline, claim it. I mean, it's logical. You know, because we didn't have the immigration law realistically until 1903 when it started with Ellis Island. You know,
Well,
go ahead.
the first immigration law was in 1790.
Well, yeah, that goes back to 1774, and that goes back to what they were doing with the Federalist Papers.
No.
And that's the one thing that people don't read, that they were sitting there going back that far, putting this stuff in, and they even put in the stuff with the Muslims and with their religion and what they do, and it's the same thing as Christianity, because even Thomas Jefferson's own note says Christianity is a controlled environment. So that's what disturbs me, how a lot of history is not getting the real stuff out. You know, we get indoctrinized to believe stuff. That's like Christopher Columbus discovered America. No, he supposedly found South America, but he still wasn't in America.
You want to hear a funny?
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a group of people. One of them's a pastor of a church. I'll have to find the video. Somebody sent it to me about a month and a half, 2 months ago. They've been digging up some stuff in the United States, a place or two in Canada, and South America. Okay, and unearthing some real interesting artifacts. Mm-hmm. And it seems that there was people here long before the Indians got here. And they don't know how they got here, where they came from, but they found the same artifacts in Europe, Asia, and some, I think parts of Africa, the same exact stuff. And the guy, I'll try to find the video and get it to you. It's a 2-hour video, about 2 hours, 20 minutes. The guy does one hell of a job of showing you that there was something happening and people here long before we got here. And I mean the Indians or anybody else. I'm talking even before the Africans.
Yeah, but the Africans, you know, they weren't just brought over by the British. The Africans were here back in the 12th century, too, if anybody does any real history.
Well, got some news for you. Whoever was here, they have already dated some of the artifacts at least between 75,000 and 100,000 years ago.
Right.
And they are not African artifacts. As a matter of fact, they found the same artifacts in Africa, okay, and they thought they were African, but they actually did not come from Africa. They came from Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been this guy does one, as like I said, it's one heck of a video. I'll have to try to find it again and see if I can get it to you, because it'll blow your mind.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to see that one, because that would correlate with the other ones where they're trying to claim the Vikings were the first ones here before the Indians.
Yeah, I got some news for you. There was, like I said, this guy has got solid proof, okay, that there was people here at least 250,000 years ago before the Indians set foot on this land.
Yeah. Well, anyhow, hang on a second. I want to get into a couple people like to give some credit to Rob Ryder. Please go on Rob Ryder's YouTube. Learn how to file to own yourself, claim yourself. And also, to go to the Lighthouse Law Club. Join both of those groups. They have wonderful educational information. And people know I'm not religious, but that's up to you to decide what direction you want to do it, because that's called your rights. Okay, but these two people out there that are putting wonderful education videos out, we got a few more we're going to start getting out there, because people are paying attention. They are going to these links. You're seeing the numbers rise. And don't forget to subscribe to us as well. But the point being is that, we do have a lot of people out getting a lot of information out there, and it is being known, and it is being passed around. And the other point is that I think I mentioned before Jeff Sessions was fired that, oh shit, he was nailed for being drunk and a whole bunch of shit. And I think I brought that up on a talk show for a couple seconds. And so, it's official he's fired. And see, you got to realize that Jeff Sessions, when he started doing these indictments and he started opening up some of these envelopes, some of the indictments he had to go to were personal friends of his that go back to his college days. And so it is reading this stuff. I've posted a lot of this stuff up on our YouTube channels. I posted this stuff up on our New Oregon Trackers Facebook site, Recall Cape Brown site, the United States for America, Republic, Elected and Public Employees Oversights in the Civil War, 1866 Lawful Bloodline. So I've been getting this stuff out. I've been passing these administrative rules, too, that I've been getting from a lot of people, passing those around. You need to pay attention to these stuff. And so when it comes down to making amends, learn how to make a proper amends, if it really means that much to you. So these are things that people have to think about when they go into this realm. So anyhow, hang on a second. Let's see. Anybody else got something they would like to add?
Hey, Ed.
Yeah, go for it.
Hey, it's Stephen again. I was wondering about
Yeah, Ed.
Yeah, go ahead.
Getting back to what you were talking about earlier. on this, okay, I know about the electoral votes or electoral
Speak
college
louder.
votes.
We can barely hear you.
Oh,
There you go.
let's see. Getting back to the thing about the electoral college votes.
Hmm?
Okay. I know that was because a lot of people were uneducated, but what the heck is this about the popular vote? I keep getting lost with that. I'm not sure. What is it, because how popular they are, or what?
Well, it's not exactly popularity. See, this is the thing that people don't realize. We didn't have voting until after the Civil War. Prior to the Civil War, the only ones who could vote was the House and Senate and landowners, but they had to vote corporation. They couldn't vote anything that affected the people. Period. End of story. Those were administrative rules that they passed for themselves, and then after the Civil War, that's when we started getting this crap that we're living under that was passed in 1940 under the 1940 Administration Act. You sort of,
Okay.
you know, and this is where everybody keeps going, well, I'm not in debt, and I'm going, well, why are you using the federal debt note? Because every time you pass a debt note, cash money, it gets correlated, because when a business is running through their bank machines, they correlate the debt through the bank machines. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so this is the point that fighting for this, like I put out, dealing with the water and electricity bills, you know, we got to start standing up on this together, filing this up in the county, make sure that the cities are notified, make sure that these letters get out there. You know, I mean, I've got guideline stuff, and if you got a way to improve, you know, what I put together, do it. It's your, you know, I don't have a problem because you can take personal liability for your own actions. You know, so that's the whole point. We do have these options that are in our hands. So that's the one point that looking at what we're living today. So anyhow, so what else you got?
Oh, nothing else. That was it.
Okay. Anybody else got something like to bring up to the table here? Okay. Well, we've gone through things, and this is the one thing is to realize and comprehend how your legal system works under the treaties of the Constitution. So when you go to court and you're a native, you have to bring up the facts of the treaties. They're going to tell you we can't handle that in our court. Then you have to respond back, what court do I have to go to? And if you are an immigrant, you don't have those rights to do that in an Article 3 court. You have to stay in an Article 1 court. So it is knowing what the separation of lawful and legal and how our corporation system works versus our Constitution republic works. And we are exposing this. We're bringing these videos out. We're bringing these audios out. We're posting this stuff out there all the time. I do recommend, you know, watching different videos. We do have that on the new.org and trackers. Please go to the front page. Watch some of the videos and how money and the circumstances. And the other key point that you have to realize that when your public employees are getting de facto money by administrative law, federal and state laws, they are supposed to be paid in gold and silver. If they're not paid in gold and silver for their servitude to honor the Constitution, their money is invalid. It's like reading what the law is compared to what we get led to believe. So with that one, I'm going to say we want to thank the Great Spirit. We want to thank Mother Earth, because without the Great Spirit and Mother, none of us would be here or have life, and without the Creator. And so anyhow, you all have a evening blessed by the Creator.
All right. Thank you very much, Ed. Now, one thing Ed did forget about is today is Veterans Day.
Yeah, that's your deal, because you were in that situation, so the
yes,
floor turned over.
But you said you were going to have somebody get a song going and everything. You never contacted me.
I didn't get the authorization yet. I will have that next time. I want to make that permission before, even though I believe I do, but I don't want to assume.
Okay. Now, the thing is with Veterans Day, It annually falls on November 11th. This day is the anniversary of the signing of the armistice, I'm probably saying it wrong, which ended World War I, hostilities between the Allied nations and Germany in 1918. Veterans are thanked for the service to the United States on Veterans Day. And basically it's always on the 11th month, the 11th day at the 11th hour of every year, because that is when the armistice was signed. Thing is, yes, we know that most of these veterans, most of them don't even realize they were nothing but pawns in banker wars. But that does not dwindle their honor or diminish their contribution in trying to keep this country safe and trying to protect the Constitution. That is the ultimate goal of every veteran and every military personnel out there. Whether they realize it or not, when they give their oath to the military, they give their oath just like all judges, all politicians are supposed to give their oath, but only the military really gives it to protect the Constitution from enemies, both foreign and domestic. If they really knew some of this stuff that we are learning, most of the military personnel out there would turn their weapons, their arms, towards America to take out the terrorists that are in the House and Senate and in the corporations and even the bankers. They are the true destroyers of the Constitution. They are the true terrorists in this country. Not the Libyans, not the Jews, not any of the others out there. It's if you are trying...
Democracy.
Right. Democracy is the anthema, the anti-Constitution organization. That's what it is. If you really look at their history, then anybody who claims they're a Democrat either doesn't know what being a Democrat really is, or they know and they admit that they are terrorists. It's that simple. So I'm a veteran, so I'm going to say to all veterans out there, every last one, that includes those who have got dishonorable discharge or whatever, because you still went there. You still put your life on the line, or even you still went through basic training. That in itself is an accomplishment. I thank you, and I honor all my brothers and sisters that are veterans and those who are still serving today.
I'd like to add something to that.
Okay.
If any of the veterans want to have going after, if you have to go after anybody, you have to go back to that war, and the board members and their heirs is the only way you can go back and be successful. And you have to do the criminal complaints, otherwise it doesn't work.
If you go after, but the kind of contracts that they make you sign whenever you go in there, make it to where you basically are property.
99% of people who signed that contract had no concept of what they actually signed.
Agreed. I didn't. If I would have, I would. Yeah, okay. I agree. That could have been fraud, and yep. So
I mean, Oliver North even admitted it in his own book.
Okay. But in the end, whether we were tricked, bamboozled, or whatever, those of us who are veterans were willing. We had the guts, we had the spine, we had the backbone to be willing to put our life on the line for the freedom that the Constitution, I always forget that word. Basically, it doesn't delegate, it dictates. It
affords us.
It basically shows what rights, what freedoms we have as living men and women. It doesn't give us, it just protects us, those freedoms.
Right.
So, I want to thank all veterans and all military personnel. And comment?
Yeah, may I?
Go ahead.
I'd like to know when the military veterans were relieved of their oath. When were they ever relieved of it?
Never were. You are never relieved. So all veterans need to protect the Constitution from enemies, both foreign and domestic.
And that's our problem, because millions of people would stand up behind the veterans if a group of veterans would say enough's enough. Oh, could we get behind them and stand beside them and say yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
The problem we have are the veterans. They took this oath, and, you know, they don't necessarily want to uphold it, and yet they were never relieved of it.
If I may, one of the reasons why they don't think about upholding it or any of that is due to these organizations like the American Legion and others that are supposed to be for vets, but they sit there and they become a bureaucracy, and it's all a big vote thing, and effectively they won't help other veterans unless if everybody voted for it. Effectively, the corporation has set up these little organizations that you still feel you're part of, because when you're from the military, I don't care who you are, you still feel a kinship with other military personnel. So they use that to control and keep you divided, or keep you forgetting that the corporations and the Democrats and all them are the terrorists that you're supposed to be defending against. That's what's been happening. I joined the American Legion for a little while until I saw that it was nothing but a whole bunch of old guys sitting around playing toy soldiers all of a sudden. That's it. They weren't doing anything useful.
Kind of like communism, right?
Oh yeah, and I got to add to that, because I've been around the Legion and stuff like this, because they wanted to get me signed up for the Sons of the Foreign Legion, that corporation, and they wanted to get me signed up for that, and I wouldn't do it because I knew what the hell the situation was about. Because, you know, when it comes down to it, yeah, my family fought in the Civil War, but why would I go back and join something that there's still a corporation running under baptism of Christianity and not reality of what their oath meant? You know, I wasn't signing a contract to that. So, anyhow, go ahead. I'm sorry. Anybody else got something to add?
No, that looks about it. But thank you all for listening, and thank you for listening to our little rant at the end about how veterans are being bamboozled. Also, one other thing I want to mention is this whole relief funds for all these other countries and stuff like that. Turn it around, come back to America. There's so many veterans that are homeless because going from military life to civilian life, some can never fully do that because of some of the stuff they've seen. Actually, most can't. Even through basic training alters you, so you are not part of the civilian life ever again. You will always see things militaristically. Why not take those billions that we send out to other countries to help them out? Why not invest it into not just the veterans, but a lot of the families that are living on the streets that are homeless, or that are without shelter, I should say. Homeless is a term they use to degrade those who are without shelter, without a residence or a castle of their own, I guess.
Well, they don't even need a resident, but the point is the funding is there for them. And the House and Senate sends it to the state, and the state sits on the funding and decides who they're going to party with it.
Exactly. They get new yachts,
and
they get BMWs, all that.
And I agree with you guys. It should be America for Americans first. Let's take care of our own people first.
Exactly.
Then we can take care of the world.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, and that's the point, that we haven't been taking care of our own for so many generations, and the world used to look up at us because of our freedom, and now we're worse than they are.
Yep. And I used to say this quite often. Let's clean our own house first instead of worrying about everybody else's house. Once we got our house in order, then let's worry about our neighbors' houses.
That's America for Americans first, precisely.
Yep.
Good for you.
All right, well, we'll end the show, and thank you for listening. And again, I salute all the veterans that still love the Constitution, and still, even those who are having hard times. Remember, you have brothers and sisters out there that care about you, even if you never meet them. They still care about you, and what in your life does matter to them. My heart bleeds every time I hear a veteran died by suicide or by malnourishment or whatever, because they were not taken care of like they should have been. So, y'all have a good night, good week, and we will see you next Saturday, where Ed will do the You Know show again. And also, another reminder, do not, and I repeat, do not bring your personal cases up on the show unless previously approved by me, the producer. If I did not approve it, you're going to get muted, just like this one man did today in this show.
All right. Anyhow, let's just get on with it. It's one of those things, the stuff was stated. Let's go on.